Meanwhile, back here at home, President Trump's executive order to declassify JFK, RFK, MLK Jr.'s assassination files is making waves. House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer has appointed Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna to lead a new task force focused on the declassification of these files, along with Jeffrey Epstein's client list, files related to 9/11, the origins of COVID-19, unidentified foreign objects, and federal secrets. Maybe they can also release the names of congressmen who have non-disclosure agreements that use taxpayer dollars because of relationships they were involved in. Here with the latest, House Oversight Committee Chair James Comer, along with Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna. Anna, start with you. It sounds like you want everything. I hope you'll also consider what I want, too.
Look, we do. I think that we're in the business of providing transparency to the American people. And Sean, for too long, the American people have doubted government, rightfully so. They held back lots of information that the American people were entitled to. And I'm just thankful for President Trump being in office. Now, I just want to put this out there. If we find that the president's executive order is stonewalled, I do not put it past Chairman Comer or Speaker Johnson to hold those people in inherent contempt. And so do not push back against what the president wants. Declassify this. The American people deserve this, and we will be following through on this.
Yeah, I appreciate Congressman Comer. Why have they hidden this information from the American people? All of it goes back to the 1960s in 3 cases.
I think it's a sign of arrogance. Look, it's a sign of government elite thinking that that the average person doesn't need to know, that they can't handle the truth, or that they don't need to know the truth. This is their territory. This is the deep state. The deep state's been around a long time. It's just been empowered in the last 4 years under Joe Biden. And what Donald Trump campaigned on was restoring confidence in the government. Right now, the average working, taxpaying American doesn't have a lot of confidence in the federal government. And Donald Trump's trying to change that. He's trying to eliminate wasteful spending and be transparent with the American people. And that's what our goal is with the task force. And Congresswoman Luna is the perfect person to lead this task force. She's persistent. She's all about transparency. And I think this is going to be one of the most interesting things Congress does, because everyone wants to know these secrets that have been held in our government. Yeah.
Congresswoman, how long till this will be released? We have to roll.
We have a couple of days, but it will be all available to the American people, and our first hearing will be noticed publicly in March.
All right. We really appreciate both of you. Thank you for your transparency.
Thank you all for being here. Today is a great day for transparency in America, because today I'm proud to announce the creation of the Task Force on the Declassification of Federal Secrets. This task force will be a part of the House Oversight Committee and led by the very talented and persistent Congresswoman from Florida, Anna Paulina Luna. During her time on the Oversight Committee, Representative Luna is a sledgehammer against government secrecy. She is committed to throwing open the windows for the American people to allow the sunlight of truth shine on the federal government. I can think of no better person in Congress to lead this task force than Representative Luna. Last month, President Trump signed an executive order to begin the process to declassify information on the assassinations of JFK, RFK, and MLK. This task force serves to build on President Trump's actions. For far too long, the American people have had reasonable questions of what their government, which they fund every day, keeps hidden about certain issues. And for far too long, the federal government has not answered these questions. This creates distrust in our institutions. That ends today. The voters of this nation delivered a historic mandate to President Trump on November 5th. The keystone of that mandate was demanding increased transparency of their government and elected leaders. And the mandate of this task force is to acquire that transparency. We will open this up for questions from the media, but first I'd like to hand it over to my esteemed colleague and chairman of the new task force, Congresswoman Luna, for her remarks.
Thank you, Chairman Comer. When our founding fathers stood against tyranny, they did not merely oppose taxes. They defended the sacred idea of individual sovereignty. They declared that no government, agency, or title could infringe upon the freedoms of speech, religion, thought, and the pursuit of truth. For too long, the American spirit has been dimmed by a veil of secrecy, by a government that has grown too comfortable in the shadows, denying us the transparency we deserve. But today, we stand at the dawn of a new era where the light of truth begins to shine through. A few weeks ago, President Donald Trump made a historic announcement. With the stroke of a pen, he committed to declassifying the files concerning the assassinations of President John F. Kennedy, Robert F. Kennedy, and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., a decision not just monumental, but pivotal. It is with profound honor that I have been entrusted by Speaker Mike Johnson and Chairman James Comer to lead the House Oversight Task Force on Declassification of Federal Secrets. Together with the help of the White House, our intelligence allies, the Department of Defense, the Department of Justice, we will be conducting investigations into the following: the assassinations of JFK, RFK, and Dr. Martin Luther King, unidentified aerial phenomena, also known as UAPs, unidentified submerged objects, also known as USOs, the Epstein client list, the origins of COVID-19, and the 9/11 files. This task force will be a beacon of bipartisanship. On the Republican side, Representatives Burchett, Boebert, Burleson, Crane, Gill, and Mace will be joining me, although I'd like to note that I'm expanding this to the entire governing body and will be allowing certain members to waive on. Our first hearing is set for March. The date will be announced soon, and we've already initiated close to a dozen communications with various agencies, to include Pam Bondi at the Department of Justice and the Secretary of State. This will no longer be a task force that makes bold promises only to fade into irrelevance or send strongly worded letters. This will be a relentless pursuit of truth and transparency, and we will not stop until the American people have the answers they deserve. We will cut through the bureaucracy, challenge the stonewalling, and ensure that the American people finally get the truth that they have been denied for too long. If we are to endure and thrive as a nation, we must restore trust through transparency. The American people must be trusted to think for themselves, to form their own judgments from the truth that they are entitled to know. We've been treated like children for too long and kept in the dark by those we elected to serve us. It is my solemn duty to begin mending this trust, to form a new relationship between the government and the governed. Let us embark on this journey together towards a government that does not serve, but one that enlightens. That does not just serve, but one that enlightens. Trust through transparency, that begins now. Without further ado, we'd like to open it up for questions, as I'm sure many of you have those. Hands up.
Thank you, Mary. Obviously, your goals are aligned with the administration's on the declassification of Martin Luther King and the Kennedys. How would you handle if you end up, whether it's President Trump or Attorney General Bondi or DNI Gabbard, if they disagree with what you're looking to declassify on a certain topic, whether it's UAPs or 9/11 or something like that? How would you handle if there's some stuff that they don't necessarily want to declassify?
Well, certainly, I think that they'd be supportive, being that they're advocating for this. But also, I want to remind the American people that this is bipartisan. There's also Democrats that are looking into answering these very questions. But certainly, we would share that information with the American people. This is about transparency. And I think, again, as I stated, for far too long, there's been a massive push to keep the American people in the dark, and that ends today.
Do you have subpoena power?
Chairman?
The task force does not have subpoena power. I do. The task force is going to be subsidiary of the full oversight committee. So if we have to issue one, Congresswoman Luna, we'll discuss it and we'll take appropriate action.
But in full transparency, we have a great working relationship, as I stated earlier, with the White House, with the DOJ, with the Secretary of Defense, and the Secretary of State. The incoming FBI director, I think, will be very supportive, and we've also been told that the CIA director is very supportive. To put it in perspective, I think that this issue transcends not just one administration, but multiple administrations, and it hasn't been until now that we've been able to get people actually in positions of power that will push for transparency. Now, Now, if I find that different entities in the various intelligence agencies are stonewalling us, I'm going to make that known to the American people. But as of right now, we are cautiously optimistic.
What's your priority list? Because Epstein, 9/11.
Our first investigation will be announced, but it's going to be covering on a thorough investigation into the John F. Kennedy assassination. And I can tell you, based on what I've been seeing so far, the initial hearing that was actually held here in Congress was actually faulty in the single bullet theory. I believe that there were 2 shooters, and we should be finding more information as we are able to gain access into the SCIF, hopefully before the files are actually released to the public.
Thank you for doing this. Have you identified the Democrats who will sit on the task force, and could you talk a little bit more about the role of Democrats in this?
Yeah, so again, this is a bipartisan commission. Remember, JFK was a Democrat, RFK was a Democrat, and I'm sure that I think the entire conference has a question on what actually happened with Dr. Martin Luther King, but also UAPs. You guys know that that was the biggest bipartisan bicameral hearing that we've ever had, I think, in congressional history. I do not know who their members are yet. They've noticed it, but they're taking this very seriously. This is not a conspiracy theory investigating committee. We're actually looking to present truth to the American people. And it's in my opinion that no one person elected to office is more important or more qualified to look at the information that they've been hiding from us. And so we look to push for that transparency.
What sort of witnesses will you expect to have at your hearings? I know you said the first one's in March. Would that be department heads, former employees of various agencies?
Would you like to jump
Go
in?
ahead, go
Yeah,
ahead.
I was going to say, based on what we're actually looking to do with the JFK investigation, I'm looking to actually bring in some of the attending physicians at the initial assassination, and then also people that had been on the various commissions looking into, like the Warren Commission looking into the initial assassinations. There's been conflicting evidence, and I think that even the FBI at the time reported some anomalies in the initial autopsy at Bethesda, Maryland. All of those, though, seem to have been rinsed and repeated in the media to push a certain narrative that we don't agree with. And so I think that in order to put to bed some of the theories that have been out there on John F. Kennedy, we have to know the full truth. And the full truth starts with transparency. And that's why these files is so important for the American people to read for themselves.
With this task force, what are you hoping to uncover as far as UAPs that you have not already heard from other UAP hearings?
The biggest information problems that we've had with UAPs is the amount of stonewalling, stovepiping, and also it seems that there is this push to gaslight the American people into looking at the evidence and then not fully believing it. I think for us, if we're writing the budget, for example, into the Pentagon, if we're writing the budget overall for whatever programs might be out there, why is it that members of Congress who are given a top secret security clearance are being denied access? That's not a free and true government. And so for us, especially being that we have now a Secretary of State who's actually open to declassification and Marco Rubio, we're hoping to present that information and at least acknowledge it from a government perspective that we are not alone, but also let's see what the evidence is.
Thank you. Have you already been in contact with or started to send requests to these different agencies and federal departments for this information?
Yes, in fact, the letters went out this morning, not just on RFK, JFK, and MLK, but on everything that I had listed above to include UAPs, Epstein, and 9/11 and COVID, to the State Department, Department of Defense, CIA, and then also we'll be sending some to the FBI, and letters have also gone out to the NSA.
How is this going to be different than the House Select Committee on Assassinations, which did investigate both the John F. Kennedy assassination and the King assassination?
Well, what's interesting on that specific committee is what, to my understanding, when they actually brought in expert witnesses, they weren't actually people that were in attendance to the initial autopsy at Bethesda. But also, this is a bigger committee than just the JFK assassinations. We're also expanding into Epstein, COVID origins, 9/11s, and then UAPs and USOs. And so before, where we initially had some of these hearings, this is going to be an encompassing committee that's going to work directly with the White House on information that they're declassifying.
Just be quick.
Yeah.
You mentioned the Warren, there's the Warren Committee, and also the Select.
Correct. Correct. There's actually 3 different government investigations into the JFK assassination. But again, this committee is expanding not just there, but outwards into other fields. And again, we're working directly with the White House. In previous investigations, they didn't have access to the information that we are going to have access to. And so that's a big deal, especially if you're looking at what truly happened with JFK.
Are you going to get a top secret clearance?
I already have a top secret clearance.
You do.
All members of Congress have a TSCI. the question is do we get SAP access, of which Chairman Comer has been very supportive and will be getting SAP access as well. Okay, 2 more and then we're going to wrap it up.
Obviously, some of the questions on some of these topics, whether it's Jeffrey Epstein or COVID-19, the questions are obvious. What specifically, though, are the questions you're looking to get answered with regards to September 11th?
We just want the truth. How much did the CIA know in advance? But also remember, when you have only certain information that's shared with the American people, that's when conspiracy theories happen. And it's in my opinion that conspiracy theories can be detrimental. It doesn't mean that in the last couple of months we haven't been right on a few things. But what I will say is I think that we deserve to give this information to the American people. I don't agree with the stonewalling that's occurred. And also, how do we prevent things like it from happening in the future? And we have to know the full picture, and the American people deserve to know that as well.
Can we expect any collaboration with the Department of Government Efficiency?
I don't know what information DOJ would have, but I would encourage them if they have anything on JFK, Epstein, or anything in between that they bring it to our office immediately. Okay, 1 more and then we'll wrap it up. Of course.
Your oversight of sanctuary cities. Senior City Mayor Eric Adams stand apart from the other Democrats in that he's cultivating a relationship with President Trump and has been critical of sanctuary laws. And what do you hope to uncover with this hearing?
Well, we have a lot of questions. Some of the people in the mayor's administration have been vocal that they weren't going to comply with federal law, that they were going to continue to act as sanctuary cities. We want to know about coordination and communication they had between the previous administration. How did so many of these illegals get there? Who was paying for it? Who were they communicating with to be able to provide housing and so many other benefits to such a large population of people? Just the basic questions we all have. Who was paying for it? Who was leading the efforts to transport the illegals from wherever their entry point was in the United States to the sanctuary cities? And are the mayors going to comply with federal law now? Are they going to work with Tom Homan and the national security groups in the Trump administration to try to deport the criminal illegals and stop being a sanctuary city?
Do you feel less worried about Eric Adams himself considering his signals?
Worried about what?
Do we feel less worried about Eric Adams?
Eric Adams, I mean, he was one of the first mayors to bring up the crisis situation, the fiscal impact on the city. So I think he would be a very good witness, and we have a lot of questions for him, just like we do the other 3 mayors. So,
All right, one last question, then we're going to wrap it up. News Nation, let's go.
Can I ask about your relationship with whistleblowers? Is it going to be the normal process that oversight typically does, or would this be? Are you going to create a separate avenue for the task force?
I mean, we're all about the normal process, but look, if you have information and it's credible, we've always approached it in that I'd like to be the person that does the interviews for it, mainly because, especially with stuff like this, we want to make sure that there's, not bad actors that are pushing false information to create a narrative that's simply not there. And so, every whistleblower that does come forward, as of right now, there's people that have been publicly out there, for example, on the JFK stuff, that were actually present in the room at the operating room where he was actually brought to right after the shooting. So we hope to bring those people in to testify. And again, these hearings will be open to the public. I'm also expanding this to the entire conference. So if someone's going to take this seriously and look at it through an investigative lens and get answers for the American people, they are welcome to ask questions of the witnesses, and you guys will all receive notice of that.
And we'll work with anyone who currently works for the federal government that wants to declare whistleblower status and receive whistleblower protection, if that's what they're interested in doing. And I don't think they're going to face the type of retaliation that the previous administration gave whistleblowers, particularly the IRS whistleblowers that blew the whistle on the cover-up of the Biden family.
And I'd also like to close with this. If you are an independent investigator, we are being told that the FBI has now located thousands of pages of documents that they lost before, specifically relating to JFK. We are going to get through as much as we can. We have a great team of attorneys. We have a great team of investigators looking into this. But it doesn't mean that we won't accept help from the public. And so we will be setting up a place for collection for people to present information. But again, this is about transparency. The government works for us. There have been people, I think, in power for too long that try to silo us and keep us in the dark, but that stops today. You're seeing that same message come out of the White House, out of the CIA, the FBI, and every other agency in between. So we are very happy to have the support of all of those individuals, happy to have the support of Chairman Comer and Speaker Johnson. And if you guys have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to Oversight Comms, and we'd be happy to answer those at that time. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
One of President Trump's first executive orders in office declassified records concerning the assassinations of John F. Kennedy, Martin Luther King Jr., and Senator Robert F. Kennedy. And now the FBI has said it has discovered around 2,400 records related to the assassination of JFK after a search for documents following the order. News Nation's Brian Enton has more on the discovery of the still secret records.
It has been 2.5 weeks since President Trump signed an executive order indicating that he wanted all of the confidential JFK records to be released. And now this bombshell news that thousands of records that apparently no one even knew existed have been located. When Trump signed the executive order, he said everything will be revealed, but when that will happen and what will be revealed is still a mystery. JFK was shot and killed in Dallas, of course, in 1963. Investigators determined communist activist Lee Harvey Oswald killed President Kennedy. But conspiracy theories about the assassination have continued to thrive for decades, and the FBI now released a new statement that says the FBI conducted a new record search pursuant to President Trump's executive order issued on January 23, 2025, regarding the declassification of the assassination files of JFK, RFK, and MLK. The search resulted in approximately 2,400 newly inventoried and digitized records that were previously unrecognized as related to the JFK assassination case file. Now, the FBI says they're working to transfer the newly discovered records to the National Archives and Records Administration for what they call the ongoing declassification process. You'll remember that originally, when Trump was in office the first time, he said he wanted to declassify the records then, but then the FBI and CIA interfered and said it was not a good idea, so he put it off. Now he says will be the time that it finally comes out. Back to you.
Thank you, Brian Enton. The Trump administration is facing pushback from the courts over its efforts to overhaul the federal government. The administration's move, led by Elon Musk and his Department of Government Efficiency, are being challenged on multiple fronts. And now a federal judge says the administration failed to comply with an order to unfreeze billions of dollars in federal grants. Plus, today a judge has ordered health agencies to restore data scrubbed by the Trump administration. Joining me to discuss, Zach Schoenfeld, courts and legal reporter here at The Hill. Zach, so just now we got this ruling. It came down on Doge's access to the Treasury Department. What's the latest?
Hey, Drew, this is now the latest development in this fight over Elon Musk's Doge getting access to these critical Treasury Department payment systems that are used to dole out trillions of dollars of payments each year. Everything from Social Security payments to Medicare benefits to everything in between. This is an order that has clarified a ruling that was issued in the pre-dawn hours of Saturday morning that imposed sweeping restrictions on who could access those systems, blocking Elon Musk, Doge, and political appointees. That was a ruling that led to swift criticism from Trump and his allies. They really stepped up their attacks on the courts over the weekend and even raised concerns among some legal experts that they might be setting the stage for not complying with it. But as all of that discussion has been happening in the court of public opinion over the last few days, we've seen the Justice Department go back in court and seek to wipe that ruling. So the judge has declined to do that. It kept keeping a lot of the main terms of this ruling in place, but she did agree to loosen some of the restrictions. So, for example, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, who the administration had warned would be prohibited from accessing the systems. The judge here is making clear he can access the systems. Also making clear that some federal contractors who help maintain some of these systems, they also can resume access. But Elon Musk and Doge, they are still prohibited.
Yeah, and we also got another ruling today in a lawsuit challenging how the Trump administration took down data posted on health agencies' websites. So is the government now going to have to restore these data sets?
At least temporarily, that is the case under this new order issued by a judge, this emergency temporary restraining orders, after a left-leaning physicians group had sued over the Trump administration scrubbing these various online data sets from the CDC, FDA, and other health agencies' websites. These data sets were scrubbed after Trump issued an executive order on his first day in office, officially recognizing that there are only two sexes. So this is part of his crackdown on what the administration has called gender ideology. So the administration ordered health agencies to take down any data sets that would be covered under this gender ideology order. And so then this suit came saying that that actually violated a federal law requiring that agencies give notice before they take down these big information data sets. So the judge coming in with this emergency ruling telling the administration they need to put these data sets back up. This is only a temporary ruling, however. The judge will soon hold another hearing about whether to grant a longer pause.
And when it comes to these federal grants, this is the first time that a judge has declared that the administration has failed to obey a judicial mandate. Are we headed for a showdown between the courts and the federal government?
That really does seem to be the case. The Trump administration, even after the judge had effectively said that they had been disobeying the court's ruling, the Justice Department here really still fighting tooth and nail in court. They have now appealed this ruling and asking for it to be stayed, asking for it to be temporarily put on hold, trying to put some of these funding freezes back in effect. But we've been seeing across many of these various lawsuits regarding what was originally a widespread federal funding freeze, that OMB memo that has now been rescinded. We've seen plaintiffs in these cases saying that even though the administration has purported to rescind that memo and follow the court's orders, they say that there's some of their grants are still being frozen. So there really is this continuing fight, not only of whether what the administration has been doing is legal, but whether also they have been complying with some of these temporary court rulings.
Now, yesterday, a federal judge extended indefinitely the deadline for government workers to accept that buyout offer that's being pushed by Elon Musk and the White House. What does this ruling mean? Is the offer still valid while it plays out in the courts? And what other legal challenges does the buyout offer face?
It is still valid for now. This ruling temporarily extends the deadline for federal workers to accept these buyouts, but it's nothing more than preserving the status quo until the judge can issue a full ruling. The window most recently was expected to expire last night, Monday night at 11:59 p.m. on the East Coast. The judge did hold a hearing yesterday and got to the end of the hearing, but wasn't ready yet to issue the ruling. So instead, what the judge did is said, we'll extend the deadline until the judge can actually issue this ruling in writing. It's unclear exactly when that's going to happen. So the bottom line right now is the buyout offer is still on the table, at least until this judge issues his ruling. And then based on that, that'll determine the next steps.
In another move, the president ordered the Department of Justice to halt enforcement of a law barring American companies from bribing foreign officials. Trump has long complained that the law creates an unfair playing field for American firms. So in order to compete, we got to be able to bribe foreign officials too?
Yeah, I mean, the Trump administration we've now seen on a few different laws has said they are not going to enforce various laws. This being the most recent one, a law regarding foreign bribery. As you mentioned, Trump is no fan of this law. He has claimed that it creates an uneven playing field for American companies. It's been used in the past to levy some pretty heavy fines on companies that have been found to violate this law. Trump said in this announcement that it has, quote, been abused in a manner that harms the interests of the United States. So his administration saying they're not going to enforce this, just like they said they're not going to enforce the TikTok ban for at least 75 days.
And Trump is the target of yet another lawsuit, this time after firing a top whistleblower protector. The leader of the Office of Special Counsel, who was appointed by former President Biden, said he was fired in a one-sentence email. What do we know about the lawsuit, and does the president have the authority to remove this position?
So in this case, what the judge has done is temporarily the U.S. Special Counsel is back on the job, at least until Friday. But that's only until Friday. Then we're going to see another ruling as to whether the firing was legal and whether they can remain in their post past that. But this is just the latest in a series of challenges that we have seen to Trump's efforts to fire various officials across the federal bureaucracy. Now, it's, various agencies, they're structured differently. Different officials have different removal protections. So each one of these firings and each one of these cases is a little bit different. But broadly speaking, these cases have really set up some key questions as to what is the president's removal authority, as well as some key Supreme Court precedents as to whether the president can remove people from some of these offices. So a lot more to come as these cases continue to climb into the higher courts.
And finally, the Justice Department has dropped charges against New York City Mayor Eric Adams. Let's take a listen to what Adams had to say today.
So I thank the Justice Department for its honesty. Now we can put this cruel episode behind us and focus entirely on the future of our city. It's time to move forward.
Now, Zach, Adams has recently cozied up to President Trump and has become more vocal about cracking down on illegal immigration. Is this Trump's doing?
Yeah, I mean, this came from the Maine Justice Department in Washington, D.C. This came in the form of a memo from the acting Deputy Attorney General, Emil Bovee, who was previously one of Trump's personal criminal defense attorneys. He sent a letter to prosecutors in the Southern District of New York, which I should actually mention Bovee used to work there, and that instructed prosecutors to drop this case. Now, I should note, even though DOJ wants to drop this case, it's going to have to be formally accepted by a judge. That has not happened yet. But that process with this new memo does seem to be moving along. And there really has been this question since the election and since Trump's inauguration of whether he would move here to pardon Adams, since, as you mentioned, he really has been cozying up to this administration. And now we have our answer.
All right, that's all I got for you, Zach Schoenfeld. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Drew.
Gulf of America is now official on Google. The company has updated Google Maps for U.S.-based users and renamed the body of water formerly known as the Gulf of Mexico. The change comes after an executive order signed by President Trump on Inauguration Day. Google has made the change after the U.S. government updated the name on its official maps. Only users in the U.S. will see the Gulf of America name change. Users in Mexico will see Gulf of Mexico, and the rest of the world will see both names on Google Maps. How quick are President Trump's cabinet picks getting confirmed? NewsNation Chief Washington Correspondent Blake Berman has a look at how long it typically takes for president's cabinet picks to get through the Senate.
A new cabinet takes shape. I'm Blake Berman, host of The Hill on NewsNation. President Trump's cabinet nominees have been busy up on Capitol Hill these past few weeks, testifying before the United States Senate. That body must officially confirm each nominee before they start the job. Now, this chart right here from the Center for Presidential Transition shows how long it's taken to confirm president's key cabinet nominees this century. President George W. Bush and President Obama each had more than 5 cabinet officials confirmed on Inauguration Day. Bush had a fully confirmed cabinet on February 1st, while Obama's last cabinet official was not confirmed until late April. President Trump and President Biden's confirmations went at a slower pace. In Trump's first term, his cabinet took 3 months to be confirmed. Biden's took 2. So far, 10 of Trump's 15 cabinet officials have been confirmed. I'm Blake Berman, and this is the NewsNation Political Minute.
And you can find more news and analysis from Blake and our colleagues 24/7 on NewsNation. To find NewsNation on your screen, go to joinnn.com. That's today's Daily Debrief. I'm Drew Petrimo. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the Hill's YouTube channel. And come back here soon for the intersection between politics and policy.